Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. The webinar today is on the 450 platform Zerotouch configuration. And our presenter is Matt Mangriotis, who is the Global Product Manager for our PMP solutions. The presentation is being recorded, and it'll be sent to all attendees, so you don't need to worry about that. We'll get that to you later today or tomorrow. And if you do have a question during the course of the presentation, please use the question and answer box on the right-hand side of your navigation, and we'll address your questions during the presentation or immediately after. Well, without any further ado, Matt?
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Again, my name is Matt Mangriotis. I'm the product manager for the 450 platform. Today I'm going to go through a little bit of background on the platform, where we're at, all the new products that have come out in the last few months. We've been expanding the platform to include several new products. And then we'll go into some more detail around the feature that's specific to this webinar, that's Zerotouch configuration. So I'll take you through that. So just to summarize the 450 platform, many of you who have joined these webinars before have seen some of this material, but I'd like to summarize for those that may be new to the product. It's the 4th generation of PMP product from Cambium Networks. The goal of this product is a flagship point-to-multipoint product, and it's designed to increase overall system capacity. Right now, with a 20 megahertz channel, we're able to deliver about 125 megs per access point or per sector, and you can put lots of these sectors together at the same location. Upwards of 1.5 gigabits of a tower site bandwidth is possible, definitely. And as we expand into more and more frequencies, we're able to do more and more things with this platform. It can support asymmetric or symmetric speeds, uplink and downlink duty cycle. It provides near non-line of sight, as well as optimized for line of sight connectivity. With the introduction of the 900 megahertz frequency band, we can now support non-line of sight in a very effective manner as well. It's software defined, so we're able to proliferate many frequencies and expand this platform and do lots and lots of things with this platform that we would otherwise maybe be constrained to not be able to do with an ASIC or a more constrained protocol. It utilizes GPS synchronization capabilities to maximize the spectral efficiency. Extremely important when you're dealing with unlicensed spectrum where it's crowded and it's being used by other devices. We can support any application, and we always try to make installation easier in terms of days or hours, not weeks or months, to install the system. Just to give you a quick snapshot, and again, these slides will become available, or this presentation will be available online, so you can peruse at your own leisure. And we have several spec sheets available for download on the website as well. But just to summarize real quick, we're available now in 900 megahertz, 2, 4, 3, 6, 5, and 5 gigahertz. And again, a couple of the key specifications is that we support above 200 subscribers per sector. Latency is always low and consistent. We support many channel bandwidths to fit where you have availability of spectrum. Power consumption is relatively low, and we have a very wide industrial rated operating temperature. So just a quick snapshot of what the architecture looks like. It's very flat, very simple architecture. There's no gateways to deal with. There's no E node Bs. There's nothing complex about it. It's a base station that's attached to perhaps a sync and power distributor, which is that CMM module, the cluster management module. And that connects to your network, your back-end network. That is pointed at a subscriber module. The subscriber module is the customer premise equipment, which is connected by a single Ethernet cable and can be connected to a CN pilot device. We used to call it a C3 VoIP. But it's a CN pilot device that can provide internet in the home as well. So it's a very simple architecture. Just to give you a quick rundown of the recent roadmap, we've introduced several new software releases this year. And included in that is some hardware. So I'll go through a little bit of that. R14.0 was released in August. That included the 450D and 450i products. 14.1 just came out recently, and 14.1.1 rather, and that included the 900 megahertz variant. And we're in the process of launching a high gain integrated 3 gigahertz SM. I'll talk about that in a little more detail. And then early next year, we're going to introduce additional channel bandwidths, including 15 and 30 megahertz, which will increase the overall throughput per sector. So the 450D, just to quickly go through the new products so that you become familiar with them. It's an integrated parabolic dish on the existing subscriber module, providing 25 dB of gain in total. This is a great package, very easy to assemble and deploy, very few parts to put together, and it assembles in under 2 minutes and can be hung and aimed very easily. So this is kind of it provides about a dB or a dB and a half more gain than even the offset reflector dish. This is available in the 5 gigahertz band. The 450i was a platform expansion. It's not a replacement for any product, but it's an expansion and allows some new tools to be used. This covers the entire 5 gig band, whereas the existing 450 covers 5.4 and 5.8. This product covers all the way down to 4.9 and all the way up to 5.925 where that's available. It also provides, it's a better radio in many ways. It's IP66 and 67 on both the access point and subscriber end. It comes in a couple different mechanical variations. One being an integrated access point with that 14 by 14 panel that you see on top. It's a 90-degree sector. And it also comes in an integrated subscriber module that's a 23 dBi panel. And this is in, again, the wideband 5 gigahertz. And it's ideally suited for industrial comms, but it also provides a step forward in the access point architecture. We also introduced 900 megahertz variant of the 450 platform. And this 900 megahertz version is the ISM band, 902 to 928. It supports many channel variations. We have several customers that have been using it as beta customers and early trial customers with glowing results. We presented our last webinar on the kind of the early field feedback from these things, and we're starting to get additional feedback from many of these customers, and we're posting them to the community forum. So feel free to dive in over there and check out the results that customers are having with this. It's been pretty good so far. We're starting to ship. We've shipped several hundred units over the last week or so, and we'll continue to ship as we move into the holidays and into January. Just one quick note on the antennas for 900. We have they're optimized and designed for this product line. It does provide some performance differentiation compared to some off-the-shelf type of antennas. It's a dual slant system. You can see the access point on the right side and the subscriber on the left. The subscriber Yagi is actually 40 inches in length, 41 inches in length, but it's a pretty effective 12.5 dB gain system that really operates pretty well. It seems to have very good results in the field so far. So I just wanted to point that out. And then, as I mentioned, over this next week, you'll see some announcements from the channel that the high-gain directional SM in 3 gigahertz will become available. The part numbers and MSRPs are listed at the bottom. But in a nutshell, it's taking the existing 450 subscriber module and putting it into this mechanical housing, which is a IP6667 rated housing with a 19 dB flat panel antenna. So it's a much easier to deploy and align type of package where the offset reflector dish may not be appropriate or aesthetically allowed in some areas. So you can reduce wind loading. You get a nice, easy to deploy package in the 3 gigahertz range. And then look for that in the next month or so. So with that said, that's kind of the summary of the platform where we're at. I'd like to dive in a little more detail on zero-touch configuration. So when we say zero-touch, what does that mean? And really what this means is it's the ability for subscribers to be added to your system or your network with zero intervention or pre-configuration from an installer. So it allows very easily to expand the network without having any risk of fat finger errors. It eliminates any errors due to manual entering of information. And you really don't need to hire the experts in the product line anymore to install the product. Anybody can put it up as long as they know how to align it As long as it registers to the access point, the rest is done for them. So how does it work? Well, we're building upon several of the features that are existing in the platform or have been newly introduced to the platform. The main pieces of this zero-touch configuration include the ability to import and export a configuration file, and we'll talk about that file and how it's created and maintained. The use of the installation color code. We have a concept in the radio called color code that allows SMs to be assigned or authenticated to specific APs, and we have a very special one called an installation color code, and I'll explain what that is. And then with those two features, and then also employing the method of getting to a configuration file, we can use either, at this point, either option 66, DHCP option 66, or a radius VSA to actually, that's the mechanism for how you get that configuration file to the SM. So the configuration file we introduced in 13.3, it added support to import or export the entire radio configuration as a text file. It's actually a JSON text file, and that's under the unit settings under configuration file. Now to get that file or to import or export that file, you need to be logged in as an administrator, not as a read-only any account, but as an administrator. You can import or export it using the web interface, SNMP, or through Radius. Some of the parameters are unique, but others are shared among the radio types. The beauty of it is that only the parameters that are relevant to that specific radio are taken into account. It'll ignore anything that doesn't apply to the radio or anything that doesn't change. So really, only the items that are in that configuration file are applied to the radio. So if you only want to make a specific change to the radio configuration, you only have to put that specific parameter into the file. So you can make one change to all the radios in your network by uploading the same configuration file if that's the only thing you want to change. Parameters that don't appear in there are not changed at all. And there's a couple of special headers or special items in there, and one is set to defaults, which will obviously set everything in the radio to the default level. And the other one is reboot if required, and that's usually if you change a parameter or a configuration that requires a reboot, it will go ahead and perform that reboot after it applies that configuration. So this kind of shows you where it's at in the menu. The picture, the circled area there is the configuration file name. It's the MAC address.cfg, and there's an example of a couple of parameters. And if you go to the next slide, we have the kind of a golden config file. You can put in this golden config file any generic information that you'd want to be applied to all radios. And then we have that set to defaults equals true, or set to defaults colon true, to set everything to defaults if you wanted to do that. You can also do an SM-specific configuration file, and I'll talk about how you get to that in just a second. So when you go to modify these configuration files, they need to be hosted somewhere, and that can either be on a TFTP or FTP server, or an HTTP or HTTPS server. Files can be edited directly with any JSON editing tool. I just have an example of one there. When you modify it, be careful of the authentication password. By default, it's not readable, it's masked, but you change it to an actual password, and then when it gets uploaded, it's masked again. When you're using Zerotouch, make sure the color code is the one that you want to attach to the right AP. Then when the radio reboots, applies the config and reboots, it'll register using the correct color code and not the installer color code, or installation color code rather. And then always make sure reboot if required flag is on to allow it to reboot after applying that config file. And now this can be used for either the initial configuration or for ongoing maintenance. And you can always put this configuration file, again, if it sees parameters that have not changed, it will not do anything to the configuration. So you can use it for maintenance, and you can also use it to ensure that your system is consistently configured. So installation color code. This is an option on the AP. So you turn it on the AP. There's a selection in the GUI. And by default, out of the box, the SM can register to an AP with a different color code if it's in installation color code mode. And a DHCP discover packet will be sent so that it can utilize DHCP option 66 if you so choose to use that. If the SM has been used before or modified, make sure that the color code is set to 0 to enable that to register with installation color code. 0 is the magic number for color code there. Installation color code doesn't allow data transmission, but allows you to register to an AP. So you can bypass the authentication to the network, but you're not compromising the security of the network. That is, that if you connect using installation color code, you're not allowing data transmission, but you're allowing connection to the AP. So you can do certain things with the SM. So the first option to actually get the mechanism of getting that configuration file over to the SM is through DHCP, and it's specifically DHCP option 66. So this feature can be used, again, for the original configuration or as an ongoing basis. When the SM boots up, it's set, if it's set to DHCP client, it sends out this discover packet, which includes the request for option 66. The DHCP server responds with the offer, and that includes a URL that points to either a directory, which would be, if it points to a directory, it'll look by default for a Mac-based SM-specific file. So as I showed in that example with the circled screenshot, we had the MAC address .cfg. So if your URL on the DHCP server points to a directory, it'll look by default for that mac.cfg file, which is a very specific to that SM configuration file. Or if you specify a configuration file name, such as canopy.cfg or whatever you choose to name it, that could be a very specific golden config file that could be applied to all radios in the network, if you so choose to do that. And then at that point, the device will download that configuration file, apply all the configuration parameters, and reboot automatically if that reboot, if required, parameter was set to true. So this is kind of a network architecture diagram just showing you what happens. So the SM scans and registers to that AP. That DHCP discovery packet is sent. It hits the DHCP server, which replies with the offer. And then the SM will FTP to the FTP server behind the network and get that file and get it transferred back done, update, configure it, and reboot. Very, very simple architecture of how this is operating. And to set up a DHCP server, it's fairly simple. There's free DHCP server programs. This is just an example of one of them. You probably or may already have a DHCP server program configured in your network. You can also there's a lot of free TFTP servers available as well to host that config file. The other way to do it, and many of our customers today have Radius installed for authentication and other functions, including configuration. And we can do this zero-touch configuration via Radius as well. And VSA is the vendor-specific attribute. So what we can do here, we have an option in the access point that disables authentication for SMs connected via installer or installation color code. What that means is that we can actually import this config file and allow the SM to register to a Radius-enabled AP while in installation color code mode. So that's available using Radius instead of DHCP option 66. And this, again, fairly simple. We scan, authenticates to the AP. If that selection is enabled, where it bypasses the authentication, then it'll connect, register, and then it'll authenticate to the Radius server. The acceptance message from the Radius server will include the VSA that has the download file name. And then it'll allow the SM to go get that file, retrieve it, update, and configure and reboot, just like in the DHCP case. So that's all I had today. It's a fairly simple feature once you kind of understand the mechanisms behind it. We have a couple of threads that I've noted here. And these threads talk in some more detail about kind of what I just went through, procedural information and stuff like that. And feel free to post your own comments and questions there if you don't get them answered here. And I guess at this time, I would like to take any questions you may have regarding this topic or anything else you want to talk about.
Well, Matt, one question that came up, you said that the skill set in order to do an installation is significantly lower. You don't need to have the expert technician on the roof of the house. While they're doing alignment, would it be appropriate for them to stay on the roof until this is completed, or is that just a matter of personal preference for the?
I think that's a matter of preference. Really, once it's aligned and the signal strengths are where you need them to be in terms of alignment, and the alignment procedures are all enumerated and talked about in great detail in the installation guides for each of our products. But once it's aligned and registered to the access point, there's really no need for anybody to be there physically. You can manage everything through Zerotouch procedures from the NOC or from your base network.
Great, and that leads us to the next question. Does this work out of the box with CN Maestro? And I know CN Maestro and PMP is coming next year.
Right, so in Q1, we will have the implementation for CN Maestro support in the 450. This works out of the box today without CN Maestro. Once it is implemented and 450 is supported officially in CN Maestro, it will operate in nearly the same way, and we'll be sure to let everyone know if anything changes. But right now, this whole Zerotouch configuration is doable without CN Maestro. So you don't need any additional software. And until we are supported officially as PMP450 in Maestro, then this is how you do it. And so once Maestro comes online in Q1, we'll be able to do it through Maestro as well.
Great, and another network operator says that's great that you can do it through software, but can you verify that there is no proprietary software needed for uploading configuration files?
No proprietary software needed, correct, that's correct. So by proprietary, I assume you mean something you need to download from Cambium. That is true. The only thing you need in order to be able to do this is a host for the configuration file itself. And that can be either, as I mentioned, either an HTTPS server or a FTP or a TFTP server that you maintain in your network.
Okay, and then what happens when it comes time to upload new firmware? Are there any special things to keep in mind?
So this is with configuration parameters only. Firmware is still done through the tool that we have, the Canopy Network Updater tool, which is called CNUT. That's still how you manage firmware at this time. Now, when CN Maestro comes on board in Q1, that will change, and CN Maestro will be able to do firmware upgrades as well as configuration. So that it will get better, but until then, CNUT is still the tool that's used for firmware updates.
Okay, now let's shift. We've got a couple of product questions for you. First one, is the 450i at 900 megahertz shipping now?
Yes, it has shipped. There's been, as I mentioned, several hundred units shipped to our channel this week, and we will continue to ship to fulfill backlog of orders. We have a significant demand for that product, and we will be shipping through the holidays, and we will catch up sometime in January to existing orders. Sorry.
Oh, great. And 900 megahertz is noisy. It's a crowded spectrum. There's a lot of things that can affect it. Do we feel comfortable that the 450i will go as far in range as the 100 FSK at 900?
So from everything we've seen so far, including lab results and field tests, the PMP450i 900 megahertz outperforms the PMP100 in both range and throughput capabilities. So regardless of where you're at in terms of noise, the 450 is outperforming the 100 in every way so far. So that's good news, I think.
Great. And I'd encourage folks to share your results on the community as those 450i's at 900 get out there. People love to see pictures of what you've installed and also speed results. Another product question for you: will the 365 megahertz 19 dBi panel and radio be able to operate in 3650 unrestricted mode?
Can you read that one more time, Ray?
Yeah, the 365 19 dBi
yes.
panel, radio, and antenna. will that be able to operate in a 365 unrestricted?
Yes, it's the same subscriber module as the existing 365 subscriber in the small package. It's the same unit inside the package, and it operates in exactly the same way. So yes, it's an unrestricted. Our 450 product in 365 is an unrestricted product, so it can operate across the entire 50 megahertz of spectrum that are available.
Great. And somebody did ask if the slides will be available. Yes, we're recording the webinar, and we will post the recording to the community sometime later today or tomorrow. And one other product question, and then we've got some more on configuration. Will the 450 900 megahertz be able to be set up as a point-to-point link?
We are planning to introduce some SKUs that are going to be point-to-point SKUs. So we look for that upcoming. So yes, we are planning to introduce a point-to-point variant of the 900 megahertz product.
Okay, back to configuration. Here's a good hypothetical. What happens if there is a typo in the configuration causing the radio to not properly parse the configuration? Does it reject the whole configuration, or does it just continue to reboot? Has anything been done on this?
Yes, things have been done on this. Unfortunately, I don't know what happens off the top of my head, but I will get an answer for that. I'm getting fed the information that only the bad item or only the mistyped item is the one that is rejected. So the rest of the configuration will go. You'll see an error in the log file where it does have a rejection. So that's kind of what happens there.
Okay, another network operator comments that for uploading the configurations, we require an expert. And that may be the case when you look at some of the screens that we took a look at.
Sure.
The point is that you don't need that expert
at every site.
At every site.
That's right. So the beauty of this is that all the configuration files can be managed from the NOC or from your central operating location, and you don't need to have every installer be that expert.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Matt. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. The presentation's been recorded. We'll be posting that to the community. And we look forward to seeing you on the community, or you can follow us on social media. Thanks, everybody.